Well, the day finally came, but it's a leak, so Lorcana rules are finally leaked. Let's take a look. Lorcana is one of those games I've had my eye on for quite a while. It looks like it plays similar to Magic the Gathering, and after reading the rules, it seems it plays very similar to Keyforge. Now, the big deal that we got to look at this here is how the deck size is going to work. It's going to be 60 card decks, but you can only have two colors or two ink types in it, which I know is something that has been discussed for in Magic the Gathering for trying to limit the amount of multicolor there is in the game. That's been one of the things that has been one of the drawbacks for competition when it comes to Magic. Also, difference with Magic, they have lands. Lands eat up a lot of bulk with it, where in Lorcana, playing very similar to Keyforge in that sense, the cards in your deck play the deck itself. Let's take a look at the rules. Okay, well, the rules for the game. This is exciting. A brand new game is hitting the market, and I see the rules. Finally, I've been waiting for this day. So playing the game, a turn is divided into two parts. Each player takes their whole turn before passing the turn to the next player. There's no interruptions in this. Much similar to like Keyforge, it's that strategic, hey, you get your move, and then it's your move. Do you get your move? Then it's your move. On your turn, take these steps in order. Your beginning phase. So number one, you ready everything, which is untapping all your characters. So ready your exerted cards by turning them upright. Then number two, set. Check for effects that happen at the start of your turn and follow their instructions. So if there's an ability, there's things that can happen that check at the beginning of this check. And then your three, then you draw a card. Now you start off with 7 cards at the beginning of the game, and then you draw a card off the top of your deck. The first player skips their draw step on their first turn. That is very similar to Keyforge. I believe that actually plays very same like that. Same with Magic the Gathering in a lot of ways. Your first player goes first, then the second player gets their draw. Main phase. Once per turn, you can put a card face down into your inkwell at any time. Additionally, you may take any actions listed below any number of times in any order you want. This will allow you to take full advantage of what your cards can do in combination with other effects. So you can play a card, use a character's ability that doesn't require them to exert, use an item ability, take an action with the character that's been in play since the start of your turn. These include a questing. Questing is how you gain lore. Challenging an opponent's exerted character. So if your opponent has something exerted, tapped, you can actually challenge them directly. And use an ability that requires them to exert. So you tap and use their ability. In some cases, it's like draw a card or create another character. What are ready and exerted cards? Some game rules and card effects require you to exert or tap a card in play. To exert a card, you tap it sideways. The same thing as Magic the Gathering. Tapping was created there. Once a card is exerted, you can't exert it again until it's been readied by a game rule or a card effect. To ready a card, simply turn it back upright. Remember to ready all your exerted cards at the beginning of your turn. Your inkwell, this is where you're going to draw your power from, where you're going to be able to cast cards, where you're able to summon your glimmers. Your inkwell is where you put your ink cards face down. You will use cards in your inkwell to pay the cost of cards you play from your hand. You may put a card from your hand into your inkwell once each turn. The card you choose must have an inkwell icon that has the symbol around it. Around the cost in the upper left corner. The more ink cards you have, the more you'll be able to do. Some of these, I was wondering how this was going to work, because some of them were like up to 8, which I thought was a lot. To put a card in your inkwell, show the card to your opponents and then put it face down in your inkwell as ink. Every card in your inkwell represents 1 ink, no matter what's on the front. Choose wisely. Cards you put into your inkwell stay there for the rest of the game. They are exiled. They are not coming back. They don't appear again. Once you put a card in your inkwell, nothing on the front matters, including its cost and ink type. It's simply ink. Now, playing a card. Playing a card means taking from your hand and putting it face up on the table. Each card has an ink cost in a hexagon in the upper left corner. To play the card, you must exert that many cards in your inkwell. So every card that is there is one, and then you have to tap up to however many it is there. When you play characters' cards, put it on the table above your inkwell. Characters enter play in the ready position, but you can't do anything with them until your next turn. You need to wait for their ink to dry. When you play an item card, put it on the table above your inkwell. Unlike characters, you can use items right away. When you play an action card, do what the card tells you to do, then put the card into your discard pile. Always put cards into your discard pile face up so everyone can see them. Songs are a unique ability or a unique kind of action card, and there's a special rule that gives you another way to pay for them. Each song says a character with cost X or more can exert to sing the song for free. That's kind of whimsical and fun at the same time for a Disney game. If you have a character with a listed cost or higher, you can exert that character to play the song card instead of exerting cards from your inkwell to do it. Using this approach still counts as playing cards. Rules for when you can exert a character still apply, of course, so characters can't sing songs the same time they come into play, unless they have, I believe it's Rush. Now, questing. To quest with one of your characters, exert them and gain lore equal to their lore value. It's listed on the side of a card. Remember, you can't quest with a character the same turn you play them, unless, of course, it allows you to. Challenging. Questing is how you win the game, but sometimes you need to slow your opponents down. This is where challenging comes in. First, exert one of your characters to send them into the challenge. Then choose an opponent exerted character to challenge. You can't challenge a ready character. Both characters in the challenge deal damage. Look at each character's strength and put that many damage counters on the character. Damage doesn't fall off. Characters damage each other in challenges, and some cards deal damage as well. Whenever the source damage counters stay on the character until an effect removes them or the character is banished, meaning they go into the discard. A character is banished when they have damage counters on them that reach or exceed their willpower. So instead of strength and defense or power and toughness, we have strength and willpower. So once they fall below that, they go into the discard pile or to the banishment zone. So the example that they give here is Captain Hook is challenging Donald Duck. Captain Hook has 3 strength and Donald Duck has 2 at the same time. Hook deals 3 damage to Donald Duck, who gets 3 damage counters. Donald Duck deals 2 damage to Hook, who gets 2 damage counters. With 3 willpower, Donald is in trouble because his damage is equal or greater than his willpower. He is banished and goes to the player's discard pile. Hook wins the challenge. He needs to watch out, though. His own willpower is 4, and if he takes 2 more damage, he will also be damaged. Will be banished. Using abilities. Many items and characters have abilities you can use during your turn, and only during your turn. These normally affect other cards in play. Cards in the player's deck, discard, hand, or inkwell aren't in play, so they aren't affected by other cards unless the card says so otherwise. If a card abilities has a cost, that appears before the effect. With 2 separated by a dash, the cost might include an exerted cost, or where you tap, an ink cost with the whole bubble, text that explains the cost, or a combination of any of these. You must pay every part of ability's cost in order to play the ability. A character with a particular ability can't be granted that ability again. Remember, you can't use abilities of a character you've played this turn. So the whole purpose of this is also to end the game. And to end the game, you need to obtain 20 or more lore. So that's why questing is important. Some abilities may give you lore also. So it's a very give and take, very similar to the way Keyforge plays. But Keyforge, the difference with Keyforge is every deck was unique. This is going to allow you that trading card collectability behind it. If your deck runs out of cards, you also lose the next time you would have drawn a card. So if, once again, also similar to Magic, if you got to draw a card, your deck is gone, you lose the game. Difference with Keyforge, you run out of cards, you just reshuffle them up and keep going. There's also multiplayer games possible here. Lorcana is a fun 2-player game, but there's nothing stopping you from playing games with 3 or more players. This game rules remain the same, except at the end of a player's turn, the player to their left takes the next turn. Whenever an ability requires 1 or more players to do something at the same time, start with the players whose turn it is, then proceed left until each affected player has done their action. That's a very interesting concept. So everyone to the left, it just goes in that order. Now, building decks, making your own deck is part of Lorcana. You get to choose a character, which characters you want, which abilities to include, and the strategies you want to employ. However, it is limited to only 2 colors or 2 inks. There are 2 ways to approach deck building. The easiest is to switch out cards in an existing deck, like the ready-to-play starter decks. You can also build a new deck from scratch using cards in your collection. This method is more work, but it can be a lot of fun. So your deck has to have at least 60 cards, meaning it doesn't need to only be 60. It can do more than that. Your deck can't contain more than 4 copies of a single card. I thought they were going to limit it at 3, but 4 copies. So that's very interesting. And your deck can only contain 1 or 2 inks. Now, Lorcana has 4 different types of cards. You have your characters, you have your items, your actions, and songs. Those are the 4 main parts of the card, or 4 things that make up the deck. 4 different things that you can do, and then the breakdown of a card. First off, you've got how much ink a card costs to play. Cards with the extra little symbol around it can be used in your inkwell. If they don't have that gold symbol around it, they can't go into your inkwell. Characters have a version of the name listed below the character's name. Categories sometimes matter, where the classification will be like a broom subtype, which is something that hasn't been spoiled yet, but we know with Mickey Mouse and Fantasia, broom will probably be different types of evergreen creatures. And then you have your ink, what color of ink they are, if they're amethyst, steel, ruby, emerald. There's 6 different inks that they can be, usually indicated by the color in the background of the card. And then you have your abilities and effects, what it does. If there's specialty abilities, then there's the strength, willpower, and your lore value. Your lore value is the number 1 thing that's going to win you the game. Once you have 20 or more lore, you win the game. Anyway, that's the breakdown on how to play Lorcana. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm your proud Canadian Phoenix, Cineshadow. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys very, very, very soon.